Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahm, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Dhanamulam Guru Murti, Pujamulam Guru Padam, Mantramulam Guru Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. Shivam friends, so today we will take reading of chapter 13 onwards of third book, Sthiti Prakaran or Sthiti Khand. And in this chapter, Yam explains to Bhrigu how thoughts create and they go to Shukra. Yam said, among these various species of living creatures, which resemble the waves of the ocean and are as numerous as the plants and vines of the spring, there are some among the Yaksha, Gandharva, and Kinnar who have overcome the error of their minds and have well considered everything before and after them, and who have become perfect in their lives, passing as the living liberated persons in this world. There are others among the moving and unmoving who are as unconscious of themselves as wood or stone. Many are worn out with error and are incapable of judging for themselves. But those awakened to senses have the rich mind of the scriptures, framed by the enlightened to guide their souls. Those awakened to sense and whose sins are washed off have their understanding purified by the light of the scriptures. The study of good works destroys the error of mind. Just as the force of the sun in the sky destroys the darkness of the night. Those who haven't succeeded to dispel the errors of their mind have darkened their understandings by a mist of ignorance, like the frosty sky of winter, and they find the phantoms of their error dancing like demons before their eyes. All living bodies are subject to pleasure and pain, but it is the mind which constitutes the body, and not the flesh. The body that is seen to be composed of the five elements to make flesh and bones is a creation of the imagination of the mind. It has no substantiality. What your son had thought of in his mental body, he found in that same body. He was not accountable to anybody for anything or whatever passed in his mind. Whatever acts a man wills to do in his own mind, the same comes to take place in a short time. In fact, there is no short time or long time. There is no other agency of anybody else required to bring them about. Whatever the mind did in a moment and of its own accord, moved by its own will or desire, there is nobody in the world who has the power to do or undo at any time. The suffering of the torments of hell, the enjoyment of heavenly bliss, and the thoughts of birth and death are all fabrications of the mind that labors under these thoughts. What need I to tell you more in the manner of writers of many words on this subject, other than go to the place where your son is situated? Shukra, having tasted the pleasure and pain of all these states at a moment's thought of his mind, is now seated in penance on the bank of Samanga river under spreading moonbeams. His vital breath, having fled from his heart, became like a moonbeam sparkling in a dewdrop and entered the uterus in the form of a virile semen. Vashishji is now speaking. Saying so, the Lord of Death smiled to think of the course of nature, and taking hold of Raghu's hand in his own, they departed together like the sun and moon. Oh, wonderful is the law of nature, said Bhrigu slowly to himself, and then rose higher and higher as the sun ascends above his rising mountain. With their luminous bodies, they arrived at the spot of Samanga river and shone on high above the tamala trees below. Their simultaneous rising in the clear sky made them appear like the sun rising with the full moon over a cloudy horizon. Now Valmiki ji said, as the Muni Vashisht was describing these things, the sun went down setting mountain and the day departed to this evening service. The court broke with mutual salutations to perform their evening rites and observances, after which they joined the assembly at the dawn of the next day. This is in 13th chapter of third book, Stuti Khand. And what is there in chapter 14 will now take. Yam and Bhrigu awaken Shukra from his tapa. He remembers his past lives. Vashishji said, Yam and Bhrigu departed from the cave of Mandara mountain and traveled towards the bank of Samanga river. As they descended from the mountain, they saw a great light below, proceeding from the bodies of the celestial sleeping in the tree groves of golden vines. Birds were playing in sprays formed by cradling vines under the canopy of heaven. Lovely antelopes looked face to face, their eyes resembling blue lotuses. They saw spiritual masters sitting on their stony seats upon elevated rocks, their bodies full of vigor and their eyes looking on the spheres with defiance. They saw the lords of the elephant herd, their big trunks as large as palm trees, plunging in lakes covered with flowers, falling constantly from the branches of flowering trees on the shore. They saw mountain bulls dozing in their giddiness and sitting as if intoxicated, while their bodies were reddened by the red dust of flowers and their tails flushed with the crimson dust blown by the breeze. There were deer whose tails served as fans for the mountain king, immersed in pools filled with falling flowers. They saw kinderlets sitting on the tops of straight and stately date trees, playing by pelting each other with date fruit that stuck to the reeds below. They saw big monkeys jumping about with their hideous reddish cheeks and hiding themselves in wide spreading vines. They saw spiritual adepts clad with vests of the tawny clouds that shrouded them and being hit with mandar flowers thrown by celestial ladies. The uninhabited foothills of the mountain were like the solitary walks of Buddhist wanderers, and the streams at its foot were flowing as if they were running to meet the sea, covered under yellow vest of kund and mandar flowers of the spring season. Trees decorated with wreaths of flowers and shaken by the breeze seemed like bachanals giddy with the honey of flowers, rolling their dizzy eyes formed of fluttering bees. They walked about here and there and looked at and admired the grandeur of the mountain until at last they descended on the nether earth decorated with its cities and human dwellings. In a moment they arrived at the bank of the Samanga river. flowing with the loosened flowers of all kinds, as if it were a bed of flowers itself. Bhrigu saw his son on one of its bed. His body changed to another form, and his features quite altered from his former state. His limbs were stiff, and his sense at a standstill, as he sat with his mind fixed on steady meditation. He seemed to have been there for a long time to rest from the turmoil of the world. He thought upon the course of the currents of the world that continually flow with successive joy and sorrow to man, who gets rid of them after his long trial. He became motionless as a wheel after its long-winded motion. He found his rest after his prolonged wailing in the whirlpool of the ocean of the world. He sat retired like a lover, reclined solely on the thought of his beloved object. His mind was at rest after its long wanderings. He sat in a state of uniform meditation, without a shadow of division or differentiation, smiling with a cold apathy at all the pursuits of mankind, liberated from all concerns, released from the enjoyments of life, and free from the snares of desires and fancies. He rested in the supreme bliss of the soul. His soul was at rest in the everlasting rest of God, just as a pure crystal catches the color of the gem that is next to it. Bhrigu saw his son in the calmly composed and awakened state of mind, freed alike from his thoughts of what was desirable and from his hatred of what was disgusting. Yam, seeing the son of Bhrigu, said to the father in a voice, hoarse as the sounding sea, lo, there your son. Awake, he said to Bhargav or Shukra, which startled him from his meditation, just like the roaring of a cloud rouses a slumbering peacock from his summer sleep. Upon opening and lifting up his eyes, Shukra saw the god standing with his father on one side, both so pleased at the sight that their faces glowed like the disk of the sun and moon. Shukra rose from his seat of kadam leaves and made his obeisance to them who appeared to have come to him like the gods Hari and Hara in the disguise of a couple of Brahmins. After their mutual salutations, Yam and Bhrigu sat on a slab of stone and appeared like the venerable gods Vishnu and Shiva seated on the pinnacle of Mount Meru. The Brahmin boy, having ended chanting his mantra on the bank of Samanga, approached them with a voice as sweet as a nectarine juice of ambrosia. My lords, I am emancipated at your side this day. You have blessed me by your sights, resembling those of the sun and moon appearing together. The darkness that reigned in my mind, which no light of scriptures or spiritual or temporal knowledge, or even my austerities could remove, is dispelled today by the light of your presence. A kind look of the great gives edge much joy to the mind, as draughts of pure ambrosia satisfies the heart. Tell me, who are you, whose feet have sanctified this place, like the glorious orbs of the day and night, lighten the day, sky. Being addressed in this manner, Bhrigu desired that Shukra remember his prior births, which he could well do by his enlightened understanding. Bhrigu acquainted him with the state of his former birth, and he remembered it instantly by the clearance of his inward sight. He was struck with wonder at the memory of his former state. He smiled with a joyful face and glad heart to think on what he had been. Then Shukra said as follows: blessed is the law of the Supreme Being that is without beginning or end, and is known here below as destiny, and by whose power The world revolves like a two-wheeled carriage. I see my countless and unknown bus from first to last, and the innumerable accidents to which they were subject to for an entire calculation duration of the world. I have undergone great hardships and known prosperity also with the toil of earning. In different lives I have wandered, and I remember having roamed for a long time over the mountainous region of Meru. I drank water reddened with the pollen of mandara flowers and wandered along the bank of heavenly Mandakini filled with lotuses. I wandered about the mandara groves filled with flowering vines like gold. I wandered under the shade of the kalp trees of Mount Meru and in the flowery plains above and about it. There is nothing of good or evil that I haven't tasted or felt or done myself. There is nothing that I have not seen or felt or known in my past lives. Nor I know the knowable, and I have seen the imperishable one in whom I have my repose. Now I have rested after my toils were over, and I have passed beyond the domain of error and darkness. Now rise, O Father, and let us go see that body lying on Mandar mountain, which is now dried like a withered plant. I have no desire to remain in this place or go anywhere of my own will. It is only to see the works of fate that we wander all about. I will follow you with my firm belief in the one adored deity of the learned. Let that be the desirable object of my mind, and I will act exactly in conformity with my belief. So, with this, chapter 14 also comes to an end. We will take another chapter 15. And in this chapter 15, Shukra laments his original body, behaving in the physical body. Vashiji said, thus contemplating on the course of nature, these lovers of learning, Bhrigu, Shukra and Yam, moved with their spiritual bodies from the bank of Samanga. They ascended into the sky and passed through the small openings in the clouds to the region of the spiritual masters, from where they descended to the lower world and arrived at the valley of Mandara. There, on a cliff of that mountain, Shukra saw the dried body of his former birth, lying covered under the dark and dewy leaves of trees. He said, Here is that here is that shriveled body, O Father, which you had nourished with many a dainty food. There is that body of mine that my wet nurse had so fondly anointed with camphor, aromatic agarwood, and sandal paste. This body of mine was used to repose on cooling beds made with heaps of mandar flowers in the airy spots of May. This body of mine used to be so fondly caressed by heavenly ladies of time past. Now it is lying on the bare ground, below to me bitten by creeping insects and worms. This body of mine that was accustomed to ramble in the garden plots of sandalwood now lies like a dried skeleton on a naked place. My body now lies impassive of the feelings of delight in the company of heavenly nymphs and withers away unconscious of the actions and passions of its mind. Ah, my pitiable body, how you rest here in peace, forgetful of your former delights in the different stages of life. and unconscious of the thoughts of your past enjoyments and amusements. Oh, my body that has become a dead corpse, dried by sunbeams, you have become so hideous in your skeleton frame as to frighten me. I take fright to look upon this body in which I had taken so much pleasure before, now reduced to a skeleton. I see ants creeping over that breast of mine, which was formerly adorned with necklaces studded with starry gems. Look at the remains of my body, now only a load of dry bones, but whose appearance of molten gold had attracted the hearts of beautiful women. Behold the stacks of the forest, flying with fear at the sight of the wide open jaws and withered skin of my carcass, with which its horrid mouth frightens the timid fawns in the woods. I see the cavity of the withered corpse belly is filled with sunshine, like the mind of a man enlightened by knowledge. My dried body, lying flat on a mountain stone, resembles the mind of the wise, abashed at the sense of its own unworthiness. It seems to me, it seems to be emancipating itself like an ascetic sitting in a trance on the mountain, dead to the perceptions of color, sound, touch, and taste, and free from all its desires and passions. It is freed from the demon of the mind and is resting in its joy without any apprehension of the vicissitudes of fate and fortune or fear of fall. The joy that attains the body upon calming the demon mind is not to be had from possession of any vast dominion of the world. See how happily this body is sleeping in this forest, free from all its doubts and desires in the world, liberated from the network of its fancies. The restlessness of the apish mind disturbs and troubles the body and is hurled down by its excitation like a tall tree uprooted from its bottom. This body, free from the impulses of the mischievous mind, is sleeping in its highest and perfect joy and is quite released from the jarring turmoil of the world, clashing like the mingled roaring of lions and elephants fighting each other. Every desire is a fever in the bosom, and the group of our errors is like the mist of autumn. Mankind has no release from these except by the dispassion of their minds. Those who have had the high mindedness to lay hold of the tranquility of their minds have gone beyond the bounds of worldly enjoyments. It is by my good fortune that I came to find this body of mine, resting in these woods without its troublesome mind, and freed from all its tribulations and feverish anxieties. Ram said, Venerable sage, who is versed in all knowledge, you have already described Shukras passing through many births in different shapes and feeling, all their causalities of good and evil. Why did he have so much regret for his body begotten by Bhrigu, in disregard of all his other bodies and the pains and pleasures which attended upon them? Now Vashishji answered, Ram, the other bodies of Shukra were merely the creations of his imagination, but that of Bhargav, the son of Bhrigu, was the actual one, produced by the merit of his earlier acts. This was the first body with which he was born by the will of his Maker, being first formed in the form of subtle air, then changed into the shape of wind. This wind entered into the heart of Bhrigu in a flux for the vital and circulating breeze, and being joined in time with the semen, formed the germ of Shukra's body. The person Shukra received the Brahmin sacraments and became his father's associate until at last it was reduced to the form of a skeleton in course of a long time. It was because this body was first body that Shukra obtained from Brahma, the creator, that he lamented so much for it. Though dispassionate and devoid of desire, as Shukra was, yet he sorrowed for his body, according to the nature of all being born of flesh. This is the way of all flesh, whether it be the body of a wise or unwise man. This is the usual custom of the world, whether the person was mighty or not. Those acquainted with the course of nature and those who are ignorant of it, like brutes and beasts, are equally subject to the course of the world, bound in the net of fate and liable to grief and sorrow. The wise and the unwise are on an equal footing with respect to their nature and custom. Only the difference in desire distinguishes one from the other. The lack of desires or the bondage to desires is the cause of their liberation or bondage in this world. Lack of desire is the great aim that distinguishes the great from the mean-mindedness of the base. As long as there is the body, there is the feeling of pleasure in pleasure and pain in pain, but the mind that is unattached to and unaffected makes itself show wisdom. Even great souls are seen to feel happy in pleasure and become sorrowful in matters of pain, showing themselves as wise in their outward circumstances. The shadow of the sun is seen to shake on water, but not so the fixed sun himself. So the wise are moved in worldly matters, though they are firm in their faith in God, as the unmoved and fixed sun seems to be moving in the shadow in water. So the wise man who has rid himself of the worldly concerns still behaves like the unwise in it. He is free who has the freedom of his mind, although his body is held in bondage. But he labors in bondage, whose mind is enslaved by errors, though he is free his body. Feelings of the mind cause happiness, misery, liberty, and bondage, just like the flames of fire cause light. Therefore, conform yourself with the custom of the society in your outward conduct, but remain indifferent to all worldly concerns in your mind. Remain true to yourself by giving up your concerns to the world, but continue to discharge all your duties in this world by the acts of your body. Take care of the inner sorrows, bodily diseases, and the dangerous whirlpools and pitfalls in the course of your life. Do not fall into the black hole of the selfishness, which gives the soul its greatest anguish. Mind, O lotus hydram, that you are mixed with nothing, that you mix with nothing, and let anything mix with you. Be of a purely enlightened nature and rest content in your inner soul. Now I will repeat again. Mind, O lotus hydram, that you mix with nothing and let anything mix with you. Be of a purely enlightened nature and rest content in your inner soul. Think in yourself the pure and holy spirit of Brahma, the universal soul and maker of all, the tranquil and uncreated all, and be happy forever. If you can Rescue yourself from the great gloom of the individual ego and arrive at the state of pure indifference to all objects. You will certainly become great in your mind and soul and be the object of the universal veneration. With this chapter also comes to an end. We will take chapter 16 in the next session, and here we will say rest for this today's session. Shivoham.